Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton and lead designer of Star Trek Online, Al Rivera. My name is Ryan T. Husk, and we are celebrating Aron Eisenberg. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing really good. It's a real honor to be here today. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks for being here, Al.
Thank you, Sirach.
We're definitely honored to have you here. So as I mentioned, you are the lead designer of Star Trek Online. Can you just give us a couple seconds about what that is for the people that don't know?
Sure. Star Trek Online, it's a massively multiplayer online game. You can play it on PC, and Xbox, and PlayStation. We're a licensed CBS product, and it's basically, I know Aron was a big WoW player. It's basically WoW for Star Trek Online, Star Trek players. So you get to play Star Trek and visit all the worlds. You can go to Deep Space Nine. You can go to Earth, Space Dock, Vulcan, whatever, and you get to play as a starship captain. We've been live for 10 years, and Aron did voiceover work as Nog in Star Trek Online for many years. And so I've known him for about 5 years or so, and he did a lot of work for us, and we became good friends from that.
So it's basically two main components. One is because I've never played the game, and I'm guessing Sirach has never played the game. We want to know all about what Nog's storyline was, so we could get a little bit more about Nog, and then we also want to talk about Aron as a human being and exchange stories that way. What can you tell us about Nog's storylines?
Well, the game takes place about 30-something years after the end of Deep Space Nine, about 35 years after Deep Space Nine, and Nog is a captain. So he's a captain of the game, and he's an engineering captain, and he designed this new ship called the Chimera class. Cool. So he joins you, and through many adventures. The first time you introduce him, you're arguing with some Ferengis who won't give you some evidence you need, and he walks in with his father's Grand Nagus staff, and basically makes them kiss the staff and hand over the data that you need. So he's on several different storylines. Primarily one that he is in Iconian and Delta Rising arc, which actually has Garrett Wang in it. So the two of them are in it together a lot. And you're trying to solve the mysteries of the Iconians. And later he joins us in a Deep Space Nine expansion called Victory is Life.
Hang on, before you get into that, so Nog and Harry Kim are together at last?
A lot, yeah. We bring together a lot of the cast members, so they are together in a really big battle, working with you against the Iconians. So yes, they're both in there, and Kim is a captain. We promoted him as well.
Wow! Finally,
so
you did what the people have been asking for.
We did that, and yeah, and then the Deep Space Nine expansion, he has a pretty big role in there, as well as we do probably one of our maybe our only ever comedy episode, which is Quark's Lucky Seven, which is kind of a riff on Magnificent Ferengi, and you do a heist with Quark and Nog and Brunt and several Lita is there too. So, and you do a heist, and you get and so that's a really fun one. I had a lot of fun with that one. So, and he's also one of the main contacts for new players. So a lot of players have been saying after learning about Aron's death, they go into the game, and the first thing that pops up is his face, and he talks to you. And so a lot of people are talking about how emotional that made them feel. It wasn't something we anticipated or even thought about, but yes, he pops into your face immediately. And so a lot of players went to Deep Space Nine, both at the place where you and Sirach and Aron would sit on the promenade, and held a torchlight vigil there for him the Monday after the announcement. So.
Oh wow, that was in the game.
Yeah, it's in the game, and so we put Nog in Deep Space Nine permanently. We're not going to kill off Nog. Nog will be permanently alive in the game, and so he's at Deep Space Nine, and people can go and visit him and talk with him there.
Beautiful.
And there's also a memorial plaque on Deep Space Nine that you can read. Happens to be the same quote that Melissa put on the memorial service
The one that Nana told us on the show, right?
No, not the one about leaning in to listen.
Okay.
It is if you look, I'm sure you still have the paper that Melissa had, the quote. It's in the other room. I could grab it, but we put that quote in the game. So,
I know the one
so people,
about.
it's and he mentions something about I even mentions a rule of acquisition in there, and so that's the quote that's on his memorial plaque in the game.
Now, when you guys do these games, do you just kind of make it up as you go along, or are you sticking to some type of the novels or some type of canon?
No, we plan our story arcs years ahead of time, and so we have our current story arc planned until 2020, until about February 2021 right now. It's our current story arc. We're working really closely with the CBS writers, John Vincitors, Kirsten Beyer, and Alex Kurtzman, because we're doing a lot of Discovery stuff right now, and we'll be moving into Picard shortly. So, and so we kind of do prequels and sequels and sidequels and just and just side stories that are important to certain characters that aren't resolved on the show. So we kind of tell those stories.
I want to read the quote that you're mentioning. It says, "May this year be everything you want it to be. Everything that you want for your life begins each day. And I truly hope all of you have an amazing year. Make it what you want it to be. Rule of acquisition number 267. Wish not so much to live long, but to live well. I have lived long and I have lived well. And that is my wish for you."
Yeah.
I mean, that's fantastic. That's an Aron Eisenberg quote.
Yeah, it's something he tweeted a few days before he passed. And so we picked that up and we talked to Melissa about it, and she really liked it. So, so I don't, yeah.
I remember that quote. Yeah. I didn't know that he tweeted it. I thought it was a good quote. Obviously, it has a lot of meaning for us about living long and living well. So tell me about your relationship with Aron, getting to know him for the game.
Yeah, sure. So I met Aron maybe 7 years ago at a San Francisco Star Trek convention. I like to go to the conventions to meet the actors where I can and talk to them if they're gauge their interest, if they ever want to work with us in the future. And so I got his contact info, and maybe 1 or 2 years later, I reached out to him. Or maybe I might have run into him at Star Trek Las Vegas the following year, and then we kind of started talking more seriously about a storyline we had for him. And then the first time he recorded remotely in LA, did a great job. And then shortly afterwards, maybe a month later, he came up to our office to do a live playthrough.
Sure.
He played as Nog in the game, playing his episode. So he came to the office, and I think he was starting to get sick then from his this was before his kidney transplant.
Yeah.
Because as I knew him at that time, he actually seemed very low energy and very tired. I remember because I had to drive him to our other office to do the recording, and he just fell asleep, and I felt really bad for him. He fell asleep in the car.
Yeah, that was definitely not Aron then.
Yeah, that wasn't. So that was how I initially knew Aron, and so he was really kind of quiet and tired. I mean, it was always cold, and he'd get tired, but he was very low energy when I first met him. And then he played through the game, and he had fun, and he was really riffing because he was playing live, and he was talking with the players, and he was joking with them, and then we went to dinner, and just so we got to know each other. And then later he had his kidney transplant, and after his kidney transplant, when I met him next time, he was so, the Aron that everyone knows, just so energy and so joking and just and riffing, and it's like, wow, Aron, you're like, I just assumed he was shy and just coming out of his shell that he got to know me better. It says, no, I just feel better now because I had my kidney transplant, and he was just night and day. And then, so he recorded a couple times. I can't remember how many times he recorded, 2 or 3 times. I remember one time, the last time, it may have been the last time he recorded, I had to call him up. I said, we missed a line. Can we do a pickup line? And I says, and he said, yeah, I'll just do it in my closet. So he just went into his closet, and just because he wanted to have soundproofing, he just recorded his closet. It sounded great. It sounded fine. So we put that in the game. And so then I sent him a PlayStation just for thanking for doing that, because he didn't have a PlayStation because he wanted to play the game, but he only had a Mac. He didn't have a PC. Our game's only on PC. So I sent him a PlayStation. I know he started downloading it, and he and I have started talking a lot more lately about this show that you guys are doing. This show was really important to him, and he just loved talking about it, and he really wanted it to grow. That's part of the reason why I wanted to come here too, is that I wanted to continue to support what you guys are doing because it was important to him, and I hope it continues for him.
Thank you, Al.
So because he wanted to start tying in with the game, started playing the game a little bit. I don't know if he ever did. I don't know if he even really liked it.
Well, it was definitely the plan. We had a Patreon level for the gamers, Nog's Gaming Room, and everybody was saying, dude, it has to be Star Trek Online, and Aaron was like all for it, but he said, I don't think I'm ready for it yet. Let's just start it off on World of Warcraft because I know that one well, and I'll work my way up to it. And so, yeah, it was definitely in his plans. We had talked about it many times, and he definitely was working his way into Star Trek Online, and just about all 8 or 16. Can't remember if we had 1 or 2 groups of 8 or 16, but they were all clamoring for Star Trek Online. So it was going to happen very soon. People
love his work in the game. I mean, because it's crazy to listen to him, and then when he goes into character, it's Nog, and they're not the same. They don't sound the same. He does do whatever he does to change his voice. It just sounds completely different.
And thanks Sirach for that, right?
Yeah, I helped him perfect that sound.
You helped him perfect it? Oh, well done.
I was the Dr. Dre to his Snoop Dogg.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, many years of listening to him ask me if he was getting it right. And I was going to ask you if he did the voiceover work with his teeth.
He did. But I think he said he only put one of them in, either the bottom or the top, because one of them didn't fit anymore. So he would do it with his teeth.
That's a great question.
I didn't know. We would have made him new teeth. We made new teeth for Armin because he requested new teeth. So we would have made him some, but he didn't ask, and we didn't even think about it. Yeah, he did it with one of them. I mean, it sounds fine. It sounds like Nog.
And I think it's also cool that you got Will Smith to do my voice instead of me, because I like him doing my voice.
You're like dead ringers for each other. It's like looking to a mirror, right?
It's crazy all the time. People off the street.
Yeah.
I think it was his top teeth were the ones that were left, because I know those were the ones he used on a couple other sets.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't know that the bottom one didn't fit anymore.
Didn't fit.
That's what he did.
Something didn't fit, he said. So yeah, so he had talked about because you guys were going through Deep Space Nine episodes, and we had just done our Deep Space Nine expansion, and like all our stories, we try to riff off of something from the show, and so I said I'd love to come on when you hit an episode that is something that we expanded upon. And then you guys hit one. You started talking about the one where Kai Opaka was stuck on the planet, and what happened there. Well, we picked up that story, and he's in it. And I'm like, Aaron, you're in this episode. You know what happened?
Yeah,
you should know.
I don't know if I mentioned that to you, Sirach, but Al, tell us because you remember, Sirach, when we talked about Kai Opaka, we're like, how come we never found out what happened to her? And we were like complaining about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we were complaining because she didn't get brought up any charges for bombing the school or being associated with it.
No, not Kai Wynn, Kai Opaka, the one who got left on the planet with the resurrecting people.
Okay.
Yeah.
They never revisited her. We don't know. Did she stay on the planet forever? Did she die? What happened? Well, Al here, they actually addressed that.
Oh, you took that story farther.
Yeah, that's the story we took further, and it bugged me. I'm sure it bugged a lot of people, so they just left her, and no one even dropped her off a care package or anything, right? They just,
see you later.
Just stuck there in the middle of the war zone. So I just kind of assumed, and we kind of wrote it that, well, no one could go into the Gamma Quadrant anymore because after the treaty that happened at the end, that we won't bother you over there. And so in our story, there's this race called the Herc, which are these insectoid, ravenous race that is the only race that ever defeated the Klingons, and they come back. So they came back 2,000 years later, and they're devastating the Dominion right now. I won't get into the whole story, but it's a fun story. But the Dominion then come through the wormhole with Odo leading them and says, "We need your help." And Kira is now Kai in our story, or was Kai at the time of the beginning of the story, and she says, she'll do it. Bajor will help if you get a cure for Kaiopaka. And so the first mission you do is you go through there and you go to rescue her, and on the planet is a new orb, an orb of peace. And so that's because what I also needed to explain was why did she have to stay? Why did the prophets want her to be there? And she basically, because of the orb of peace that came, she was able to translate and help all of these people, and basically spread the word of the prophets into the Gamma Quadrant. And eventually that movement and that orb of peace is what helps leading the Jem'Hadar into kind of joining. I mean, there's a lot that happens, but they end up kind of following that wisdom. And it's actually kind of funny because when we watch What We Left Behind, they ended up coming up with a similar story. Ira did, as far as Kira being Kai, and getting a bunch of Jem'Hadars to kind of join religion. Not in the same way, but we wanted to do that. And Aron's character is part of that story. And
do you think that they borrowed from you guys, or
no,
do you think
I highly doubt they even know who we are.
Really?
I don't think. He may know. I don't think Ira Bear plays Star Trek Online, or maybe I don't know how big that group was as far as if any of them actually played, and maybe they picked up something. But I just think that the stories are. It's just some natural progressions. It's just like
just a natural way that it would
natural evolution
evolve.
Of what would happen. Of course, Kira would get into the religion,
right?
And they picked up other things that I would have liked to, but didn't. Like, for instance, picking up your character and Jake's brother, and we would have loved to explore that, but I couldn't have told that story without Avery. And so getting a hold of Avery and making that work is a lot more challenging. So maybe one day, if I can get Avery, then that would be a really great story to tell again in the future.
And and you, so I wanted to go back to when you said Captain Nog is at Deep Space Nine now, pretty much forever.
Yeah.
And that is true about Sirach. I don't know if you know about this, but the Star Trek Online, is like the next day after Aron passed away, everybody, that was playing Star Trek Online, just tons of people went to the Deep Space Nine area in the promenade, where the two of you, as he touched upon, where the two of you would always sit and talk. And they held like a candlelight vigil for him. Like,
I think that's so awesome.
Yeah.
It's like it's a virtual vigil.
Yeah. They congregated in two places, both at that place in the promenade or at Quark's. They did the same thing when Leonard Nimoy passed. They all found a fountain on Vulcan and all decided to congregate there. So we ended up putting a memorial statue of Spock on that place. It's basically the people picked it where they wanted to remember them. And so the same thing happened here. They picked two places in this case, the promenade deck, and that's where we put the plaque, and then Quark's, and so that's where we put Nog. So where the people just kind of naturally congregated, that's where we decide to honor them. So
they went into Quark's as well.
They went into Quark's as well, hanging out there. So we just decided, well, where we would do this, what we do, and then we just put. We thought about putting Captain Nog at the promenade with it sitting on the seat, his feet dangling over just like before, but it felt lonely without Jake, and it looked really lonely. And plus, he's a captain now, and he's whatever. He's
just sitting
like
on the promenade.
Yeah, as a 50-year-old captain says, no, it looks a little. It looked childish. So, so we just put him next to the bar, next to Quark.
Is this a life-size statue of him?
No, there's not a statue. It's just the actual character standing there, just hanging out, talking with Quark, and then you can talk to him. It's not a statue.
Okay.
So as a player, you can go up and you can
click
talk
on him
with Nog. And
Now, how long was the voiceover work? Like, how intensive is that voiceover work for Nog, for Aron's?
I think he did 3 sessions, and they're about 2 hours each. Sessions about 2 hours for most of the actors. It depends for any given actor, depends on sometimes they bang it out in an hour, and sometimes it takes them 4. But typically they're about 2 hours, and he basically did them in about 2 hours. And so the 3 sessions plus the 1 visit when he did the Twitch live stream. additional work. That's what he had done. So,
yeah, he loved gaming. He always talked about it, trying to get me involved. And I, like Ryan, I'm more of a sports video game player than I am more of a role player game.
He also hated his voice. He said he didn't like watching D-Station. He doesn't like watching. He didn't want to see the game because when he saw it, he'd see himself and he'd see himself talking, and he hated it. And it's like, you sound amazing. It's great. It's perfect. He says, no, he was very self-conscious of all his work. He was always checking. Did I do that right? Did I do that right?
Yeah.
Did I do that right? Was that good? Did that sound good? That doesn't sound good. Let me do it again. Like, no, it sounds great.
There's a theme there. That's exactly Aaron's motif right there.
So he was self-conscious.
He's so critical. He's so critical of himself.
Yeah.
And that was part of like even just rehearsing the lines and getting over the voice. He was so critical. Does that sound right? Does that sound right? Do I sound like a Ferengi? And he's so critical of himself.
Yeah.
He wanted to get it right.
You know, on the set of Renegades, when I hadn't thought of that until just now, but on the set of Renegades, we made him a different alien with horns and stuff. And I was the subject of that because we were both in the back on the bridge. And he kept saying, he's like, what do you think? You know, should I talk like this? Am I sounding like Nog when I talk like this? Does this sound too much like Nog? And I was like, yeah. And so he was just kind of like feeling his way through it because he really only had, you know, a couple days to kind of put together the mannerisms of a new alien, which is both exciting and terrifying as an actor. You can be as creative as you want, but at the same time, you got to stick with it then, you know, you got to make that choice and stick with it forever. And, you know, he just kept saying, you know, like with you, Strzok, he kept saying, you know, does this sound like Nog? He was saying to me, he's like, does this sound too much like Nog? Does this sound like Nog?
I think it shows that, you know, he would talk about it. It's like he cared about the work, right?
He cared about the work.
You know, it wasn't just a paycheck or a gig. It's like he wanted, you know, people were paying him, people were showing up to watch him, and so he wanted to make sure he was doing right by everybody. And so he really cared about it.
Even at the conventions, I would see him many times. You know, a lot of us actors, when it starts to get slow and wind down, maybe on a slow day, we start to call it quits, you know, maybe get out of there an hour or two early. But I always see Aaron just stick it out. He's like, no, I'm going to be here till the end of the day. They expect me to be here. Somebody's going to be looking for me, and I'm going to be here till close. So he was dedicated in so many ways.
There were very few actors like Aaron who engage so much with the fans. Who will shake their hand, will give them a hug, will take a picture with them and talk with them. So many actors just don't want just you know, it's work, it's hard, and I get it. It's you know, sometimes the fans can be annoying. I know you can see, and so maybe it wears on them, and maybe they stay behind and they won't take photos, they won't shake your hand or whatever, but you know, there's a handful that are just really, really engaging. It's and Aaron was right up there, and so he really loved his fans, and he really loved talking with them. And he really loved engaging with them, and I think that's rare. It is, but I think he sets a bar. That's you know, and he's going to be missed by a lot of people. I'm going to miss him a lot because every year I'd see him in Vegas, and we'd go to dinner. We went to the same place every year, a place called Chef Kenny's, and. Started going. I think it was a place that Garrett had found, and so we started going there. And so I am grateful I got to see him last year. This August, and we got to dinner. And I think it wasn't the last time I saw him. I saw him the following days, but yeah, I got to go to dinner with him then, and his wife Melissa.
You know, to touch on what you're saying about the convention, I think probably what it is in Strzok. You can correct me if I'm way off base here, but I think all of the Star Trek actors really cherish and appreciate the fans, but after 20 or 25 or 50 years in some case, they don't, you know, they get a little used to it. And so they're still appreciative, but they just maybe show it a little less. Whereas someone like Aaron just never took anything or anyone for granted. Like he really appreciated and respected and cared about every single fan that came in. And yeah, I would see him at the convention. He would stay till that very last minute. And he would talk to every fan as if, you know, they were best friends, as if what the person was saying was the most important thing going on right now. I'm sure you saw that, Strzok. Yeah.
I saw it a lot. And I'm not to disparage the actors because everybody has their own reasons and their own behavior for how they approach conventions. It's just that Aron was exceptionally approachable. He was exceptionally, there was no barrier or wall between him and the fans. He was embracing, and he took the time to go the extra mile to build a relationship. He was always about relationship building, and so you have to give him credit. I've seen, like, for example, I've seen Avery take his more time with fans when he does his signings, and whereas other captains that I've seen kind of are quick about their signatures and give out less of their time, not to engage in a conversation or ask that many questions, trying to be as brief as possible. But I've seen guys like Avery, for example, that have taken their time and got spent the moment to connect with each person. I feel like Aron does that to an even farther extreme. Let's meet afterwards. I'll see you after. What are you doing after the convention? So his hours for business didn't really close. He was available all the time.
Yeah, this last August at STLV, I went to the Quarks Bar. It's just a lounge they have there, and he was at a table with a dozen fans, just giving his theories of Voyager, just talking for an hour with a
and he's only seen one episode of Voyager. His own. He only saw his own episode.
He saw his own?
I think the pilot. I think he just saw.
No, he saw like maybe 3 or 4, and then maybe probably,
which is more than I have, by the way. So I shouldn't talk. But he loved to give his opinion on Voyager all the time.
But he was engaging with the fans. He just he just had this crowd around him, and they were all sitting at the table, and he was just talking with them, and it was great. It's no mean to disparage any particular actor. It's just that he made everyone feel warm. He was very warm, and I know on another podcast that I frequent, Priority One podcast, which covers primarily games and Star Trek Online. One of the hosts there is he's from overseas, Ireland, I believe, and he was in. He's a war vet, and he talked about, because he cried when he heard about Aron died because of the episode, the PTSD episode, Only Paper Moon, and so how much that affected people, and so he, that his performance, his portrayal, and how he would talk to people who he met about it. Everything about him was just wonderful, and it's tragic and it's sad. I'm gonna miss him a lot, and so I was just, I had just seen him. I was like, well, I'll see you next year, right? And you just expect him to be there again next year. He came up on stage with us a couple times. Boy, he was so funny. He was so funny as he come on stage. And probably that last panel I did with him and Chase and Max and I'm sorry, now I forgot Garrick's name.
Andy Robinson.
Yeah, Robinson. Yeah, Andrew.
Where was this at? Star Trek Las Vegas?
In Las Vegas, not this year, but the year before that. Mm-hmm. And Aron just dominated the panel, right? He just completely dominated the panel, and he's just laughing and being rowdy and getting everyone to joke, and it was just. I mean, I don't remember anything specific he said, but he was kind about it. But that panel wouldn't have been the same would not have been the same without him. It just would, and he made it fun. He made it fun for everyone. He engaged with everyone. He was joking with everyone. He's teasing Max and he's teasing Andrew, right? And
I'm sure the fans loved it. They went nuts for it.
It was nuts. Everyone was laughing. He made everybody laugh. So
I'm sure Andrew and Max hated it. Because when Aron starts getting in his teasing zone, sometimes you just gotta you're just like, I hate this guy right now. Yeah. What a jerk. And it's funny because we used to laugh so much every time, Ryan, I occasionally call him out and say, hey, you're a real jerk. You shouldn't say that. And
he's practically like, thank you.
He loved that. He loved me calling him out. And I think that was one of his things. He liked to call people out or put people on the spot or point out the obvious. And not to put you down or to be disparaging, but just because that was part of his humor. It was like he liked that. He liked that honesty, and that kind of approach. I think I've never met a more like self-deprecating guy. He wasn't afraid to talk about his own flaws and what he lacked. So he would always acknowledge that. He
always made the short jokes himself. You're right.
He made the short jokes himself, and he talked about his own life experiences, himself. So you didn't really have to get on him because he would be on himself. But he also enjoyed laughing and having so much fun, like you say at the panel. I remember too many times of us getting the giggles. I think one time we did a Vegas panel, and somebody was answering a question. And the way they answered it was just, they said some series of words that could have been interpreted as something else. And Aron and I looked at each other, and we just couldn't stop giggling, couldn't stop laughing the whole time. And that's just how I remember him. I remember him as a smiling, laughing, playful guy.
At the memorial service, I remember Max's, which was brutally touching, what Max had to say about how they were backstage and Nana was going on stage, and he was egging on Max. Let's go on stage. Let's tease him. Let's tease her. Let's tease her. And he said, no, I don't want, that's terrible. Let's tease her. No, let's go in there and tease her. And Max is reserved, and he's quiet. And so he just goes out there himself and starts teasing Nana, but the two of them are laughing, and Max is saying, I can't believe it. She loves it. It's like, because there was nothing mean about when he would tease you, because he was very, he was very compassionate. And then he'd ask you afterward, did I offend you? Did I offend you? Did I go too far? He felt bad about it, right? Sure. And he'd always just ask, and but he was entertaining, right? He was an entertainer, and it was funny, and no one, I hope nobody was offended. I was never offended. He teased me. He teased the game. He would tease it on stage. We talk about something. What? You don't have this? You don't have this? What are you doing? And he teased me about it. I'm like,
you have the biggest online game in the history of the world.
Don't you have this?
Hey, Al, so we only have a minute or two left, and I do want to thank you very much for all the time you gave us and all the
thank you
memories. But I was hoping you can finish off by just, for those people that never met Aron in person, whether it was online even, or at a convention, or they worked with him, the people that only knew him as Nog, can you just tell them how you remembered him, the kind of person he was to you?
Aron was very compassionate. Aron, you could see it on his Facebook posts. He one of the things that we bonded over was politics, and he really cared about people. He saw injustice, and he wanted to fight it. He wanted to go after it. He wanted to use his celebrity to spread words of compassion and fairness and equality. And he was a champion for that. He was a champion for the little person. No pun intended, but he was a champion for those who didn't have a voice. And so he always stood up for what's right, and he was always kind and gentle. And the world is a much smaller place without him right now.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Al. Sirach, any parting words?
Well, I'm happy that he'll always be Captain Nog. That was a part of his dream that he was able to live out. I'm happy that the fans have been so supportive, and that the tributes have been genuine. And I'm sure that he's smiling upstairs, knowing that what he left behind was people that cared about him, that respected him, and that understood where he was coming from as a person. That's what we really want to do in life. We want ourselves to be understood. We want our legacy to be known. We want our voice to be heard. And if anything, he made sure that he left a voice that will always be heard.
Yeah, you know, he's smiling down at us, but he's flipping you off, Sirach.
I know.
I don't know if you heard, Al, but they had the flip-off game that they would always try to catch each other. But
yeah, we had an ongoing. I mean, it lasted, decades. Actually.
Yeah.
So this is a long-term flip-off game. Yeah, it was a flip-off game, and the last time we were in Vegas, I got him the last time. He
got you since then.
He did. Did he?
When we did the live video at YouTube Space in LA.
Oh yeah, I didn't acknowledge that.
And I
didn't acknowledge.
That's right. You said, I read words. I don't read art or whatever. You said pictures.
Yeah, I didn't acknowledge that. I completely didn't give a full credit.
Yeah.
But we used to have this game, and it was just it was almost like the thing that we just picked up right where we left off. And you get to see people so sparingly in between conventions. I got to wait till next year before I see you again, And I'm glad that I took the initiative to go down there and see Aron this year in Vegas. That was like a real treat for me to now have that experience, that last convention together.
He really loved you. He talked so much. He talked so much about you this last time I saw him. He loved you. He talked about how what a great listener you are, how smart you were, what a great judge of character, and so he had wonderful things to say about you, and he never had anything bad to say about anybody, and so but he really loved you as a brother.
I love him too. Yeah. I love him too. We'll always be together. He's waiting for me. He's picking out a spot for us upstairs on the promenade.
Yes.
There was one thing I wanted to share because I don't think it's been shared enough. And that was something Melissa said, and I did talk to Melissa about this to make sure it was okay to talk about publicly, and that she wanted to let people know that Aron did not die of kidney disease or kidney failure. That Aron was very, very careful and took care of his kidneys and was very diligent about taking his meds and honoring that, and eating right, and honoring the gift that he was given. So they wanted to let people know that that's not why he died, because they don't want to discourage people from donating, and want to encourage people to continue to be a donor, because it's it lasted him a lifetime, and so that's not why he died. So people should know that. I know a lot of people just speculating that he just died of kidney failure. I've seen a lot of things about that, and I think it's important that.
I'm glad you clarified that, because that is obviously the first question when somebody says that he passed away. People will say, "Of what? What happened to him? How did he go?" And that was the first suspicion for people was always that that it was kidney related, but it was not, and that should be noted. And it should be noted that he was an advocate for recipients of kidneys and people who have experienced the transplant and people that have gone through the same thing as him. He always advocated for that and was very grateful for being the recipient.
Yeah.
Which is why it's important that Al brought that up for sure, because that kidney was going to last him 30 more years, basically. So we want to make sure that nobody's discouraged from donating kidneys. It had nothing to do with that. That gave him an extra 30 years of life, theoretically. Thank you for mentioning that, Al.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And thank you very much for joining us. I know it wasn't always easy, but we appreciate you coming in and talking about Aron and giving Aron work and putting Captain Nog on the promenade for us forever. We do have that Captain Nog Forever line of things that we're selling for this month, and all the proceeds are going to Melissa and Aron's family. So I think that's really cool that you guys literally have Captain Nog Forever on the promenade. So thanks so much for all that. That's really cool.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, Ryan, and getting to finally get to know you better, Sirach. So thank you very much for having me here. And I'm no need to thank me for having Aron in the game. It certainly was our honor to have him join us. So I'm glad another place that he'll live on forever.
It's really cool. All right. Thank you very much. And for those of you at home, always remember the 7th rule.